So, Lancaster LM111 WP-G took off from Tuddenham in Suffolk near Bury St Edmunds on the 7th of August 1944 with a crew of 7. The pilot, I think it's important to say their names, that we remember their names. The pilot, Leonard French, the bomb aimer, David Reed, Canadian, Royal Canadian Air Force. Flying officer, George Leslie Smith, British, yeah. Flight Sergeant Kiddy, Royal Canadian Air Force. Charles Gold, rear gunner. William John Henderson, flight engineer. And Sergeant Dennis Bernard Castle, British also, radio operator. They took off from Tuddenham about 9 o'clock in the evening, and their target was at Falaise, which is south of here. It's south of Pont, actually, where there was a concentration of German armour and troops. I think there were about 50,000 troops there. And the British were to the east of there, and they had to go east with Montgomery, but they couldn't get past Caen, which was occupied by the Germans, and they couldn't get past the Falaise pocket, which was a very strong German force. So the idea of the mission was to destroy this pocket. To do that, they sent 1,000 aircraft from different bases in England, and our crew came, as I said, from Tuddenham in Suffolk. They got to the target about 11 o'clock, released their load of bombs. So Lancaster had 10 tons of bombs. So imagine 1,000 bombs, 10 tons each. It's unimaginable. They successfully hit the target, returned back to go home, and they came over this way without incident until they got to Le Havre, which is over there about 50 kilometers away. And there they were hit by anti-aircraft fire. Not totally disabled, but bad enough for them to turn back inland. And on their way back, they were probably brought down by a Messerschmitt 110, which is a fighter bomber. We know that from the German pilot's report, which seems to tie in with the timing of the excuse me, of the bomber's flight and its return in this way. So they came in, I'm told, by people who saw them come in. They came in this way and crashed in that field over there. The Germans took away the wreckage, but the plane was very heavily embedded in the earth, and the engines are still there, and various bits are still there. These are parts from the wreckage. Ce sont des morceaux de l'avion qui ont été récupérés après. Et il y a encore des restes dans le champ qui appartient à monsieur Barassin, là-bas. Toujours là, Barassin?
C'est monsieur Le Vanier à qui il est tombé. Hein.
Oui, il y a des pièces qui ont été tombées.
Là au-dessus, là.
Il y a des pièces qui ont été trouvées chez M. Barassin, oui. C'est l'été dernier.
C'est Vanier.
Before the plane crashed, the pilot stayed at the controls, and 6 of the crew were able to bail out. Because the plane was damaged, this is just imagining and presuming, but because the plane was damaged, he would have to stay at the controls to keep it in a stable flight so that they could jump out. And if you ever see the inside of a Lancaster cockpit, there's one at the Imperial War Museum you can see really close. It's actually very small. It'd be very hard to get out, put your parachute on and jump out the hatch. You're just not going to make it. So I think we can presume that French sacrificed himself so that the other 6 could survive. Of those 6, and they all bailed out at different places, so they weren't together when they landed. Of those 6, 4 managed to escape and 2 were captured. The 4 who escaped were helped by local people, by the resistance, and by the networks which had been set up by Military Intelligence 9, MI9. And they managed to make their way westwards, or to wait until British troops came here, which was around the 24th of August, and that's why we're here today. One of the locals who helped them was a man called Roland de Liquer, who I met. and interviewed, and my daughter interviewed him on video, and you can find the video on the site if you scan. So he helped Smith hide in a barn for about 10 days, even during the period when the farm where he was hiding had German troops billeted on it, so he had to stay very quiet. And eventually he escaped, and he met up with the Royal Yorkshire Fusiliers with Mr. Delicaire, and the Royal Yorkshire Fusiliers, on seeing them, opened fire and hit Mr. Delicaire. But curiously, he had no resentment at all, and he was full of good words to say about them, despite having a bullet in his leg. And they were made to stop firing by Smith saying, "Cease fire, you bloody idiots." And you can find that because Smith, having survived, he put his memoirs down in writing, and you can read them on another site, to which there's a link on my site, or if you want to go direct to the site kept by his grandson, Nick McKee Smith, I'll give you the link. But it's absolutely fascinating what he had to say. The others were interviewed by MI9 when they got back to England. So there are evasion reports for Henderson, Gold, Kiddy and Smith, which I got from the War Office, the Ministry of Defence as it's now called. And you can also read them in full on the site if you're interested. So after the war, what happened? Mr. Leroyer built this shrine to the Virgin. Smith came back in 1946 to visit his friend's grave. We have a photograph of that visit, which is also on the site. And he came back almost every year to visit Mr. Delicaire, who after all had saved his life. Also, French's had a sister. He was from Morden, south of London suburbs. And his sister Irene came back not so long ago, but now she's died, unfortunately. But she wrote letters to people in Clarbec to thank them for the kind welcome that she got when she came. So I think that's all I have to say. The complete story and all the basic documents are on site. There are two sites, there's my site and Nick McKee Smith's site.